The Melbourne Storm are back at home at Olympic Park with a chance to go on top of the NRL ladder. They take on the Panthers, and here is their side today. There is one change in the run-on team. Ian Donnelly comes into the forward pack. He takes the place of Brett White, and Ben Cross plays his first game of the season for the Storm. The coach is Craig Bellamy. For the Penrith Panthers, they have Craig Gower missing after that knee injury in Origin training. Once again, Preston Campbell will play halfback. Luke Lewis moves into 5'8", and that brings Nick Youngquist into the side. Their coach is John Lang. Our referee this afternoon, the man in charge, is Shane Hayne. It's fairly nice conditions here in Melbourne, although it is a fairly chilly 13 degrees as Preston Campbell gets us underway. Not a deep kickoff, and Greg Inglis comes out to take it just inside his own 20-metre line. We'll see how the Penrith Panthers handle this boom youngster at the back for the Melbourne Storm here this afternoon. Ian Donnelly into the side with the withdrawal, of course, of Brett White. He gets a starting role here this afternoon off the bench, and a good hit up there to take them back within 10 metres of the halfway line on just play two. Ryan Hoffman working down the left-hand edge as it goes from Johnson back to Garrett Crossman, of course, a Panther who John Lang was extremely keen to keep at the foot of the mountains. It didn't turn out that way. He got a big offer from the Melbourne Storm, and the Panthers lost that bidding war for a young front rower who's been in very good form so far in 2006. Comes back to Cooper Cronk, who tries to find the gap there between Reece Wesser and also Luke Rooney. A trouble-free start for the Melbourne Storm, and Wesser brings it back just outside the Panthers' 20.
Yeah, just as you would expect from a Melbourne Storm team. They're very well coached. They're very clinical in the way they go about their business. They just know their direction and what job they have to do within that structure. And they've got their own little goals that they have to achieve. Last weekend, Craig Bellamy was disappointed with some of the performances of the players, and he'd be looking for a better effort and an early sign of enthusiasm from the Melbourne side.
Joel Clinton, of course, with an injury to Luke O'Donnell in the New South Wales side, would be looking for a big performance here today to try and press his claims for a spot in Origin 2, perhaps. A former representative player looking to make it back to that stage as Matt Geyer takes the kick on the full and brings it back outside the 20. Jake Webster working away from dummy half. Set upon there by Nick Youngquist, trailing across to him to the middle of the field. Here's Inglis now, just hopping out of dummy half. He could go the length of the field in the blinking of an eye. Here's Smith. Ball away to Ian Donnelly. Bringing it back up towards the halfway line. They've got 2 tackles left in this set of 6. No score yet here in Melbourne. The Storm up against the Panthers live on NRL Sunday. Last play in this set for the Melbourne Storm as Cameron Smith gets the kick away. Preston Campbell, as ever, defending back on that right wing, floating back there with Wesser, who played it off the legs and was picked off inside his own 10 as a result of not picking it up cleanly.
It's such a strength of the Melbourne Storm kicking game. Cameron Smith out of dummy half, especially from middle of the field towards the left-hand sideline. He's very dangerous, comes into play. Left foot kicking game out of dummy half. It's a nightmare for the back three for the Penrith side. They've got good variation with their kicking game.
Here's Matthew Cross working it up to the 40. For the Panthers will be in action, of course, today against his brother Ben Cross, who plays his first game for Melbourne today, coming off the bench. He'll be keen to get out there, the former Canberra Raiders forward. Waterhouse playing it as Prittis goes back to Luke Lewis. A chip over the top. A chance if he gets a bounce to put something on. What a great bounce. A ball away to Youngquist for the corner. Luke Lewis sets up a blinding try for Penrith to put them on the board. They lead 4 points to 0. What a chip and what a chase.
Well, last weekend against the Parramatta side, he won the Man of the Match award, and he's continuing on from that form he'd shown last week. The players on the outside were saying run it, but Lewis, he elected to go over the top with a chip and chase. And Youngquist got plenty of speed, was on the outside. He just backed his ability. And John Lang said after the game last weekend that him being away and not training as a 5'8" perhaps helped his game, because he just went out there and played what he saw.
The kick heading towards the post. It's there. Terrific kick. What a start for Penrith. They lead the Storm 6 points to 0.
Score 6-0.
The Panthers are, of course, looking for a 5/8 for 2007. Preston Campbell won't be there. He's off to the Gold Coast Titans for their first year in the NRL. And perhaps Lewis in the past couple of weeks and what we've seen in the opening minutes here today, putting his hand up for that role next year. Here's Clinton going back to Pritis. Now Pulatua. This big Panthers pack certainly matching whatever Melbourne can throw at them in the early exchanges here. Now it's Pritchard. It's not a bad trio to have rolling out of your own end, is it? Clinton, followed by Pulatua and then Pritchard. Now Campbell as they go to the right-hand side. Waterhouse sending a couple of wide can cause some headaches. He's cut down there by Scott Hill and also Ryan Hoffman. Campbell kicking from just on the Melbourne side of halfway. It will bounce down towards Matt Geyer, who plays it awkwardly off the legs, and then Greg Inglis dropped it. And luckily for Melbourne, the referee says he knocked it backwards. He'll have his heart fluttering after that mistake, of course. In the second half of the opening Origin game on Wednesday night, he recovered very well to score 2 tries to get Queensland back into the game, but he might be a nervous youngster at the back at the moment as Webster takes it up towards the 20. Cooper Cronk getting to dummy half and giving it to Ian Donnelly, who runs at Joel Clinton, who just wraps him up around the chest. Luke Pritis was also in there, and they've done well to limit them to a kick here from just outside their own 20. Cameron Smith floating back there at first receiver as opposed to being a dummy half. Gets a good kick away. Rooney taking it from the 20-metre line, brings it back to just outside his own 30.
That was a really good set of 6 there by Penrith. They put the Melbourne Storm team under pressure. They're really moving hard off their line. We all know that the ground is not as wide as some of the others in the competition, and Penrith have been playing a compressed defensive line here coming up against this Melbourne side. They're willing to show Melbourne the outside, and they need to do that because when you play Melbourne, you've got to win the ruck. You've got to control the ruck tempo of the game, both with and without the football. And they're looking as though they're doing it early in the contest. Nice hands from Pritchard onto Galea.
He stopped just inside the Melbourne Storm 30. Pritchard again getting to dummy half. Campbell has some pressure on him. Cameron Smith was coming through. Greg Inglis taking it on the full and then almost colliding with the upright. He brushed the padding there on the right-hand side of the post, and now Matt King gets in, or perhaps his first touch of the game, but he's met by a fair reception committee as well. Waterhouse and Pritchard combining.
Well, they look flat, don't they, Melbourne, already? They look flat. Plenty of hands on hips. Not much structure within their team at the moment. They're all gathering around to play the ball. And Penrith have certainly lifted the enthusiasm and are really meeting them when they're carrying the football. There's another good tackle.
Donnelly was bent backwards in the tackle. Smith this time at dummy half will feed it back to Cooper Cronk. Again kicking from deep inside his own half. That one from the 30. Not a bad kick though was Rooney. Takes it once more on the full at the 20-metre line. Not a little breeze here in Melbourne today. It shouldn't advantage either side at the moment. Perhaps a slight zephyr of a breeze favouring the Melbourne Storm coming off the Yarra, the southern end of Olympic Park in this first half. Luke Lewis from dummy half. Chopped down on a good tackle there by Donnelly. Getting back to his feet, playing it quickly for Wesser, who was almost away. Ryan Hoffman jamming in and making a good tackle to stop him. Here's Pritis going to the right-hand side. Pritchard taking it to the line, popping it out the back for Waterhouse, who was grabbed straight away by Matt King. They'll play it here on the last. 32 metres out from the Melbourne line. They'll put it through the hands. Here's Lewis going with a cutout ball to Youngquest, playing it left centre. Here's Rooney coming back midfield and beating tacklers like they were way for thin. And he went within 8 metres of getting to the line as well. A strong run by the left winger.
And another good sign by Luke Lewis, electing to run the ball. He saw some space out there on the left side of the field. 5th tackle. Wasn't thinking kick, I'll think of run. And then if that doesn't work, then we've got the ability out wide. The players know that it's last tackle. If they're covered to maybe get a kick in. Good play by the young 5'8".
Here's Scott Hill going to the left-hand side. Hoffman trying to stand and offload. Of course, the Melbourne Storm will have a new home ground in around about 18 months. And part of the reason, the government assistance as well as some injections of funds as Matt King goes down the left-hand side. And, of course, the Victorian government, big players down here. And Stephen Bracks is a special guest on the sideline this afternoon, watching from very close range, enjoying some NRL action after, I'm sure, running an eye over the AFL action down here in Melbourne over the weekend. I'm sure he would have loved seeing the Sydney Swans towel up one of the Victorian sides yesterday, Laurie. They've turned over possession here in pretty good field position for the Panthers as Reece Wesser takes it down to within about 40 metres of the Melbourne line. They're in front by 6. Here's Pulatua now, taking it to Cameron Smith and others. Garrett Crossman, a former teammate, was around the legs to stop him also. Pritis from dummy half runs a couple of metres before giving it to Joel Clinton, who's picked up off the ground. They take him back to earth fairly gently as well on this lush playing surface at Olympic Park. He gets up rather slowly there. Now Campbell goes to Matthew Cross, looking to spin. And he thought about a pass before Cooper Cronk loomed up in his vision to perhaps take an intercept as Lewis cuts back to the right-hand side now. He's got Wesser with him. He dances away from the defence and then is brought down midfield by Cameron Smith. Good tackle by the Melbourne hooker. Last play here for Penrith. Pritis goes one way, comes back the other. Not a bad grubber either. Will have some pressure here on Inglis, and he may not be able to get it back from the in-goal area. They stop him. Terrific work by Luke Pritis, who continues his good form of last week against Parramatta. And Penrith have 6 more tackles coming up.
Yeah, great work by the Penrith hooker. Nice little show to the left-hand side of the ruck, scooting out. Difficult to get the ball in the in-goal down here. They're smaller than most other grounds. They're usually 8 metres long. At Olympic Park, they're 5 metres. So it's difficult to get repeat sets of 6 when you're not used to the size of the in-goal area. But Pritis played it nicely for his team. And they're all over the top of this Melbourne Storm side in the first 13 minutes of this game.
Here they are again, coming on the attack. It's Clinton off the back of the good return by Matthew Cross. Clinton got to the ground pretty quickly, looking for a fast play the ball, and gets one as well. Now Campbell going to Pritchard, who runs towards Scott Hill and also Ryan Hoffman. They're 10 metres out. Youngquist scored for them in the 4th minute off a beautiful chip and chase from that man Lewis, who goes back on the inside here to Wesser, and they stop him in front of the post. Pritis will keep it going to the left-hand side. Lewis again has Waterhouse with him. A lovely ball off the hip. Well handled by Waterhouse, but they were there in numbers to stop him, including Dallas Johnson and also Kidwell. Campbell will put a bomb in the air. Some pressure here, going up for it. There was a chance there for the Panthers, but it came down to a former Panther, Steve Turner. A knock-on ruled by the referee, and there will be a turnover on the last, and Melbourne will play it through Steve Turner at their own 10.
Well, they've shown some good scramble defence, this Melbourne Storm side. Penrith have had all the football, and there you see Gordon going up against Steve Turner. There was a knock-on by the Penrith side, changeover, and Melbourne haven't had much possession, and all the field position has been basically played inside their 20-metre zone. And there's a silly offload by David Kidwell, and the pressure is now back on.
Galea has it. He'll play it just outside the 20. Here's Campbell now, going to Clinton. Melbourne have been camped at this end of the field. It's almost a replay of what we saw last night in Townsville with the Cowboys continually coming at the Canberra Raiders, who managed to hold them out and win in golden point time. What a game it was. Pritchard playing it for Pritis. Now Lewis again, looking comfortable until he threw that pass for Matt Geyer. There are some chasers, but they won't get to him. Reece Wesser gave it up quickly. Lewis is still chasing, but Matt Geyer takes an intercept. The most popular player here in Melbourne scores between the posts, and in a moment it'll be 6-all.
Well, didn't they need that, Melbourne? And will that inspire the rest of the team to pick up their effort? Just lacked a little bit of urgency. Wide ball from Luke Lewis. He thought they had the numbers, but Geyer reads it so well. When you play to his side and you play long, you've got to go to the man straight away. You can't afford to play it and have a bit of a loop in the pass, because he does read it. And showing no signs of his age, he streaks away to score. Under the sticks.
And now Cameron Smith from right in front. Draw the Melbourne Storm level with the Panthers. 6 plays, 6. don't want to keep harking back to what happened last night, but the parallels are quite remarkable, with the Cowboys having lots of pressure and then the Canberra Raiders scoring the opening try of the game against the run of play. Well, the Panthers scored first here, but Melbourne sort of absorbed so much pressure inside their own 20 in the opening quarter hour of this game. And then Matty Guyer does that, and now Cameron Smith's away, splitting them right down the middle. They've had no field position at all, but they're back on level terms. And here's Cooper Cronk now going on a raid down the left-hand side. It wasn't a great ball to Matt King. It was low and out in front of the New South Wales and Australian player, and really spoils the momentum they had after this run here by Cameron Smith. Sold a beautiful dummy.
Yeah, great work by Cameron Smith out of the acting half position, and that's something that Penrith need to be aware of. 6 weeks ago, they carved them up around that area. And Melbourne are really a patient side and a structured side, and they build pressure on the opposition. Yet today, they've started to force passes inside their own 20-metre zone. They've come up with a couple of errors, and on that occasion, Cooper Cronk going wide with a long pass. The execution just wasn't there. Usually they're patient and they build their game, Melbourne.
Panthers captain Tony Puletua playing it there at the halfway line as Joel Clinton puts up his hand for another carry. 7 now in the game for the front row as he plays it back to Pritis, who finds Waterhouse cutting back to the left-hand side of the park. Youngquest was looming up but couldn't get there in time. Kidwell was able to do a good job wrapping up Trent Waterhouse. Here's Campbell to Luke Lewis. Tries to use that very good footwork he has. He'll play it here just inside the Storm's 30-metre line. On the last play, poor pass from dummy half. It comes back to Campbell now, who rubbers in behind them. Will put another toe on it. What a ball. There's a chance there for Youngquest and also Rooney, but Youngquest missed it, trying to tow it through again into the in-goal area. And the Melbourne Storm off the hook there. That could have been a freaky try for the Panthers.
Well, it was good work. They've looked dangerous with 2 kicks. They look very dangerous, and that's where their points look as though they're coming from. Storm, while they haven't been great with their football, their goal line defence has been enormous. They're covering up. It's the kicks that are giving them problems. And last week against Manly, they conceded 6 tries from 10 metres out. And they did concede a couple of kicks last weekend. That's something that you continue to do if you're Penrith. Variety with your kicking game against a well-constructed Melbourne defence.
And after surviving that scare on their own line, Cameron Smith, with the help of the forwards, works them down into a good position, and then, not with much angle to work with, threaded the ball between the Panthers' defensive line and across the touchline between the corner post and the 10-metre line. Lovely work by Smith, who's kicking out of dummy half, is a real feature of his game.
Well, he just controls the tempo, doesn't he, with his game? He can find touch, he can keep it in play. And it's such an advantage to have a left foot kicker out of that dummy half position. The markers, they can't afford to attack him, because if they do, he can play someone in behind the ruck, or there's a risk of maybe a charge down, ball going out, 6 again, call.
Is Craig Stapleton out there now as John Lang goes to his bench for the first time in the game. Pritchard now spinning as he gets to the line there. Ryan Hoffman able to stop him just short of the Panthers 40. Here's Pritis going back to Luke Lewis, who dummied to Tony Puletua, then threw a cutout ball to Luke Rooney. He was stopped pretty quickly though. Jake Webster getting up in his face with the help of Scott Hill, who's been floating across this Melbourne Storm defensive line, defending in conjunction with Ryan Hoffman on the left-hand side, and then spending that set on the right-hand side in defence. Inglis, not a casual catch back in his own line, and he brings it back out towards the 20. Done a good job of the kick chase so far and limiting the metres that Greg Inglis can take out of those kick returns as Guyer tries to work it outside the 20.
And he's been in great form, Greg Inglis. Scored 2 tries in the Origin game. And I think his preferred position is the fullback role. And he got a chance through the suspension to Billy Slater. And Billy Slater is due back for the Melbourne Storm next weekend. So he gets one last chance here today to prove to the coach that they need to keep him there. That's where he wants to be. But some interesting selections coming up for Craig Bellamy as the Storm once again turn the ball over.
Another mistake inside their own half. We've seen a few of them so far in the game, and now Campbell will feed the scrum for Penrith. 35 out from the Storm line. Here's Wesser getting up to first receiver and trying to put that pace on. Inglis, though, has the pace to match it with him and wraps him up with the help of Matt King. Galea out of dummy half. Straightening things, taking them away from the sideline. They've got a long left-hand side set up for perhaps the play after this one when Stapleton brings it back midfield. Lewis trailing along behind the play, waiting for Pritis here at dummy half, who will go to that side. Here is Lewis. Mindful, of course, about the pass he threw for the intercept for Matt Geyer as Tony Puletua almost gets away there from the tackle of Cooper Cronk. Lewis to Campbell. Steaming through was Clinton running a decoy runner. Now Wesley pours through a hole, gets past Matt King and gets the ball down to put the Panthers back in front.
Coming up, mate. I just want to check the grounding, mate.
Matt King had come up and then he had to basically cover half the field. And when you got some speedsters out there as Wesser grounds the football, this will be a 4-pointer for the Panthers. The momentum carries him into the in goal, so there's no concern there about a double movement.
They've had some chances. They convert another one, and they find themselves back in front. They lead here 10 points to 6. Now Preston Campbell converted the first try from wide out. This one didn't miss by much either. It shaved that left hand upright.
When you're ready, Cameron.
I'm sure Craig Bellamy will talk to his side about forcing the issue with unnecessary passes inside their own half. They've given the Panthers some cheap possession and they make them pay off the back of that error. And the scrum win to Penrith as a result. Clinton playing it, putting in a good first stint here as Stapleton takes play number 2 for them. Pritis coming back to this right-hand side. Waterhouse again. Just simple stuff from the Panthers. 1 out, but they've worked it outside their own 30. Here's Pritis going to Pritchard. No decoy runner, no tip-on plays, just muscle on muscle. That's the way the Panthers have done it for 4 or 5 seasons now, as Puletua follows that suit up to the halfway line. They've done it the hard way, but they've got back there pretty comfortably as Pritis now will kick out of dummy half, down a narrow short side. They've got some backspin on it to stop it at the try line of the Melbourne Storm. Lewis coming through, makes a good effort to pick off Inglis. Just a couple of metres out from his own line. Good stuff by the 5'8".
Well, he's very enthusiastic this afternoon, Luke Lewis. Mightn't be your classic 5'8", but he's really doing some smart things out there. He put on the first try with a chip kick. He's been very enthusiastic in the defence line. He's talking to his players, telling them where to go, getting them off the line. And he's really trying to inspire his teammates.
David Kidwell, one of the rotation of captains that the Melbourne Storm employ this year. Matt Geyer, the captain today. As Wesser brings it back out at speed to the 30-metre line where he's met by Jake Webster and also David Kidwell. Luke Rooney getting out of dummy half. The Panthers' completion rate 11 of 12 so far in this game. John Lang would love that statistic. Campbell going to Nick Youngquest.
Well, you give yourself a chance in any game if you have a completion rate like that. And that's what they would have spoken about coming here. They've had some good victories the last couple of weeks. They got a chance to make it 3 in a row and built on the platform.
Here's Pritchard. So hard to get to ground. Standing in the tackle there. Cameron Smith and Antonio Kafusi were there to stop him. It was a slow one as a result. And now Campbell with a kick over the head of Turner. It was too big. It might have landed right on the sideline. A mistake by the now halfback today, at least for the Panthers, Preston Campbell. Here's the kick again. There was only maybe a ball width in it. It was clearly over the sideline. And it gives the Storm a rare chance to go on the attack inside Penrith territory as Kidwell takes it to 45 metres out from the Penrith line. Cooper Cronk going across to Jeremy Smith. Goes with the socks down around the ankle. He's big and raw boned and is a real handful. Now Smith to Hill, straightening, asking the question of the inside defenders there for Penrith, but Waterhouse on the outside of him was able to hit and stick as Cronk now goes to Inglis. One of those arcing runs of his, but he was stopped by Michael Gordon, the right winger for the Panthers, and now they take it forward. Here is Cross. Ben Cross gets his first touch as a Melbourne Storm player. Here's Smith going back to him as they work at a 3-on-2 perhaps. Here's King, beat the tackle there of Gordon, then pass the ball straight back to him.
Well, he realised he had to keep the ball alive, Matty King. It was tunnel ball there for a second, but the big front row, Ben Cross, couple of good carries, nice offload, and then he was also aware of a short side play after he played the ball. He filed back, he got the pass out wide, created half an opportunity, but Penrith were up to the task.
There is Matthew Cross. Back out there now for the Panthers after a short stint. He'll be coming to grips with his brother at some stage as Stapleton now works it up towards the 40-metre line. Prittis waiting for it, a chance for Campbell to rectify the kick that was out on the full last time around. This time he picked out Steve Turner, who got a one-bounce kick, and he brings it back to almost the 40.
It's been a good game of football so far and an even contest, and you've got to give the referee a rap. There's been no penalties.
Here go the Melbourne Storm looking to put Matt King away. They went there straight away on the second play. With Campbell kicking that ball from midfield, they realised it takes him some time, a couple of plays at least, to get back out to his defensive position on the right wing, and they knew there would be a chance on that side and went there straight away. We've seen Matty Geyer use that play before. Here's Inglis down the right-hand side himself, coming to Wesser, who makes perhaps a try-saving tackle. Terrific effort to bring down the tall and angular Inglis as they go down to Kidwell. 5 metres out, he spins, or attempts to at least in the tackle. Prittis wraps him up with the help of Paul Ayton, who's out there as well. Now Cronk, a kick. King up against Campbell. It seems to be a mismatch. Campbell got a hand to it. The ball went over the sideline.
Knocked on, 20 metre.
And it will be, as it turns out, a 20-metre restart for Penrith. The call from the touch judges, Matt King got a hand to it and knocked the ball over the touch and goal line. Let's take a look at this. Here's the bust by Inglis down the right-hand side. And Wesser coming across. He put a bit of a jink on at the death. Here's the kick from Cooper Cronk now. Campbell flying for it. He must be giving away 6 or 8 inches there. The touch judge was right on the spot and said that will go back the way of the Panthers. Here's Stapleton almost getting through a hole right down the middle of the park. Stopped there by Smith and also Jeremy Smith. Cameron on the bench forward, Jeremy Smith combining.
Good tackle there by Kafusi. I read with interest Michael Crocker saying that he should be selected for Queensland in Origin 2.
To bring some aggression into the Maroons pack. A chance to impress today. We'll see what he can offer against the Panthers. Here's Campbell, a grubber in behind them again, trying to find out Matt Geyer, who's now back there at full-back with Inglis floating out to the right wing for the moment. So a reshuffle for the back three for the home side as we go to within 9 minutes of the half-time break. Penrith 10, lead the Storm 6. Here's King. Playing it, 45 out from the Penrith line. Jeremy Smith running hard and straight. He almost beat Cross and also Stapleton. Hoffman getting to dummy half. It went past Ben Cross. Now on the run around from Cronk to Kidwell. Jake Webster straight through. Wesser won't get there. And we're back on equal terms once again. It's 2 tries apiece. A lovely piece of play. Cooper Cronk linking up with his outside men, sending Jake Webster away.
They got some nice plays and variation within their game, Melbourne. And on this occasion, it was Cooper Cronk. Just a short play to David Kidwell and then the wraparound. And Jake Webster hits the hole and he flies through to the corner. There you see the wraparound. Bring in Luke Lewis. They had them for numbers. And Jake Webster played a lot of his football on the wing.
Good game of football here, building at Olympic Park, the graveyard where Melbourne have won 9 games straight, looking to continue that streak. And Matt Geyer scored an intercept try to get them on the board. First time up. Now he converts from wide out to give the side he captains today the lead. 12 points to 10.
Hasn't it been a quality first 35 minutes? And here we've got Cameron Smith sitting on the sideline. Cameron Smith, 22 tackles. He's done plenty of work just sitting on the bike, keeping his legs moving. But you thought that the Storm would throw all their attack down the Penrith's right side defence, and they've certainly had problems down there with Preston Campbell, Mickey Gordon and Danny Galea in the past few matches, but they're having success down the left-hand side. Greg Inglis only a few minutes ago split them down that side. Nick Youngquest wouldn't have been happy with his effort to tackle Jake Webster.
Marcus, lock in there, Luke.
Here's Nathan Friend, the one-time Brisbane Bronco, who's been down here, brought down by coach Craig Bellamy when he was signed by the Melbourne Storm, the former Broncos assistant coach. Brought him down, but of course they've got a pretty good first up hooker, haven't they, in the shape of Cameron Smith. Here's Cronk, kicking from the halfway line. Will come across to be taken on the full by Wesser.
Well, they're lucky they've got a player of the calibre of Friend, because they can bring Smith off and give him a bit of a breather, because it's going to be a demanding period for him with State of Origin over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And it also provides him an opportunity to play with other teammates for longer, given the fact that Smith will be away. We talk about him being influential in this Melbourne Storm team, and last week they missed him. And having said that, Friend was one of their better players, but it's a different game that he brings to the table.
As Paul Aiton out there, has been out there for some time now, with Luke Brittis also on the field. Change and roll this afternoon for Paul Aiton, if you like, and Luke Brittis. Wouldn't expect both of them to be out there, both dummy half players, as Inglis comes back to Campbell. He beat his first up tackle and stopped by the forwards just in front of his own post. 8 metres out from his own line. We go inside the final 5 minutes of this first half. It's Melbourne by 2.
Here's 10.
2 tries apiece, and the kick of Matt Geyer from almost the sideline, the difference at this point in the game. Jeremy Smith cut down a good tackle there. It's made by Matthew Bell, as now Cronk goes to the line and almost went through as well. Aiton picked him off in a good tackle. He was hanging on for a long time as well, and Shane Hayne must have gone close to blowing the penalty late in the tackle count for Melbourne.
I think that was one that he missed there. Would have been the first penalty of the game. He's had a good game other than that.
Cronk's kick for the sideline there, taken on the full by Luke Rooney, who has it back 15 short of the halfway line. Youngquest coming back to Reece Wesser, who looks up and sees plenty of purple jumpers in front of him.
We are harsh when he has to rule on a couple of 100 tackles in one half of football, and we say he should have penalised.
Well, here's a penalty against the team in possession. Paul Aiton taking it forward, and now they'll be marched a further 10 metres as well. Reece Wesser taking it to the 40-metre line, trying to play it quickly. Doesn't back on his feet, according to the referee. And now the Melbourne Storm have it just 15 metres out from the Panthers line. Friend going to Ben Cross, took some stopping there. It was a good tackle as well by Matthew Bell. Here's Friend, a short ball to Jeremy Smith, but the pass was forward.
And I think he got it correct. I don't know whose call this was, whether it was a touch judge or whether it was Shane Hayne, but I think it was the correct call. Friend fades away on his pass, and it exaggerates it a little bit, but I'm prepared to go with the officials. I think that was a good call.
Shane Hayne had a pretty good view on that. He wasn't too far away from the line of the pass and made a very quick call. I'm going to say it was his call to rule it forward. And I'm so glad we don't go to the video referee to rule on instances like that, because as you can see from that angle there, it's just almost impossible to tell.
Well, I think they got it right.
Here's Stapleton now, playing it at the Penrith 30-metre line. Could have busted the game open to the biggest lead so far. Could have been 8 points with the conversion off the back of it. The lead going into the break perhaps for Melbourne, had that pass been okay. Instead, Penrith hang on, and Aiton has it here at the halfway line. Storm will get at least one more set of 6 here. Campbell kicking deep. Inglis is back there at fullback now after a brief swap with Matt Geyer, who's back on the right wing, and we'll get a pass here from Inglis, who put him under pressure. Youngquist was coming down. I don't know that Inglis realised they were coming as quickly as they were down that left-hand side, and now Inglis tries to get it outside the 20.
Well, he did put Guy under pressure, and Guy did a terrific job to take it. He could hear the footsteps coming. He could see the bodies. He had to show courage to take the pass, and here come Melbourne through. Cross. He's been good off the interchange bench. He gives this Melbourne Storm side some authority and size up front.
Here's Hoffman running at Michael Gordon. The ball there for Campbell, who lost his feet as he went to pick it up. It'll give the the Penrith Panthers a chance here. 45 metres out with still 50 seconds on the clock. Another forced pass by the Storm in their own half, and now Gordon plays it to Campbell, looking for somebody, and nobody was putting their hand up at first receiver. Now Aiton getting on the outside there of Scott Hill. Jake Webster and also Matt Geyer came in to shut him down quickly. Pritis goes to Reece Wesser. He tries to use his speed to bust them near the play of the ball. Pritis again, showing it. Coming to Luke Lewis, who's got a backline set to the right-hand side. Good run by Waterhouse. An equally good tackle made there by Jeremy Smith. Here's Campbell now to Lewis. King coming in. He pops the ball back to Campbell. Galea, one-on-one there with Steve Turner. He's got Michael Gordon with him. 10 metres out. Last play here in this set. Last play of the first half. They'll get it in before the siren sounds. Stapleton back to Campbell. Pritis goes to Lewis. It's a pass in behind Wesser. It comes back to Aiton, who tries to get on the outside of Webster. He did that. Lost the boot. Gets it back to Luke Rooney. He puts a grubber in. Jeremy Smith goes back there. They went from sideline to sideline as the siren sounded. And at the break, the Melbourne Storm hanging on to lead here by 2. We're back underway here at Olympic Park, the graveyard. And it's the Storm who lead by 2 against the Panthers. And right on cue, some light rain begins to fall here at Melbourne. They were forecasting showers, and the forecasters were right. Here is Craig Stapleton, bringing it back up towards the 30-metre line. They'll come to the left-hand side. Pritis goes to Matthew Bell, who takes it up towards Kidwell. Also Jeremy Smith and Antonio Kafusi. Waterhouse doing well to take a difficult pass. The ball from Pritis was up around his left shoulder. He was able to hang on to it. And contact there from Ryan Hoffman, who's there to make another tackle, this time on Craig Stapleton. But the Panthers forwards doing well there, just 43 metres out from the Melbourne line. Here's Campbell kicking down towards Matt Geyer, but he finds the turf, and Geyer will watch it bounce, and it will just make it across the dead ball line. Very unlucky there for Preston Campbell. These narrow in goals there, just catching him out. Any other field in the NRL, and Matt Geyer was probably trapped there in his own in goal. Yeah, and I think any other field, Matt Geyer would have played for the football. I think he just knows that the ball will roll, and it doesn't have to roll as far as the other grounds. He took a chance to it. Could have been a penalty there to Penrith. It's a sloppy play the ball there by David Kidwell. Here's Nathan Friend giving it to Kidwell once again, who works it down towards the Panthers' 40-metre line. Friend going to Jake Webster, one of the 2 try scorers. Now Ben Cross coming to Waterhouse. There was a collision between them. Waterhouse might have got a knock to the head there, but he's okay on his feet at the moment. Cronk. An end-over-end kick, trying to get it over the head there of Reece Wesser, but he couldn't manage it. And the Panthers fullback will bring it back outside their own 20 to begin this set of 6.
That's something we haven't seen a lot of, because they just haven't been able to establish good field position on last play, the Melbourne Storm. Reece Wesser has had his moments under the high ball. He's dropped his fair share when he's been placed under pressure. They just haven't been able to get themselves in a position to do that. Already scored a try though, Reece. Dangerous player with the football.
Stapleton taking it up to be stopped by Antonio Kafusi. Pritis going back to Matthew Cross, met at the halfway line. They'll kick it again from around about that mark as Lewis was waiting for it. Pritis though kicks from out of dummy half, and it bounces inside the 20-metre line, but the kick from way outside the Penrith 40. Cooper Cronk from the scrum win, giving it to Matt King. They're up against the committed Panthers outfit today, the Melbourne Storm. They're playing like the Panthers, who opened up the season with 3 wins in their first 4 games and not the side that lost 4 games straight just after that. They're up inside the 10 though here. It'll give Greg Inglis the chance to go to the sideline to pick off some metres. He has a good kicking game to go along with the speed and the evasive skills he also possesses. He can jump. He can literally do it all. Here is Ben Cross running at them. Coming to Lewis and also Bell. He took some stopping. That got the locals excited. Here's Kidwell. They won't have seen too much of Ben Cross before, but I'm sure they like what they see after that.
Oh, it's a quick play the ball. Just allow someone else on the next run to have a good play.
Now Jeremy Smith running at Bell, beating him as well, coming to Wesser, who had him by the back of the jumper. He stops him a couple of metres out. Friend goes to Cronk, in behind Kidwell. It could have almost been an obstruction play. He'll play it back to Friend. Here is Scott Hill trying to duck under the tackle there. Underneath the black dot almost when he plays it. Just a couple of metres out. On the last, here's Cronk. Little chip over the top. Some pressure here on Campbell, who doesn't contest it. It comes back to Matt King. But leaping forward, Steve Turner was over the sideline, I think, when it was batted back in by him to Matt King. And as a result, a turnover on the last will give it back to the Panthers here. There's the running repairs for Trent Waterhouse, who was in that collision with Ben Cross earlier in the set of 6. You could see Steve Turner there leaving the ground after having his feet on the sideline.
Yeah, correct call by the referee. But I think Ben Cross has just shown the Melbourne Storm forwards what to do. It's to run with plenty of aggression. I think that was lacking in their carries in that first 40 minutes until the back end of the first 40. But they really need to get quick play the balls, and it's something that they're good at, Melbourne. Slowing the play the ball down, but also when they've got the ball with their carries, is to up quick. Smith, Friend getting out of there.
Here's British, a good ball to Stapleton off the roll on provided by Trent Waterhouse, and now Stapleton another fast play the ball, and they've got the Melbourne Storm defenders scattered around the ruck area. Here is Lewis popping out the back. Last play for Campbell. Here's Cross going to Wesser, throws a long ball to the right-hand side for Gordon, who puts an awful kick in. It'll get the Panthers 6 more tackles, though. Jeremy Smith got handcuffed by a curveball, which was going one way and then came back the other. A difficult one to take, and he's put it down to give the Panthers a real big chance here to hit the lead once again.
Well, they just kept it alive on 5th play. He hooked it back in field, and Smith just couldn't come up with it. Turns the ball over 20 metres out, and Penrith, great opportunity to register first points of the second half. Aton from the back of the scrum.
He'll play at about 15 out from the Melbourne Storm line. Comes to Waterhouse. It takes it forward for a settler, met there by Friend and also Antonio Kafusi. Now Prittis bypassing Stapleton to give it to Matthew Cross. He takes some stopping just like his brother Ben on the opponent's side today. Prittis going back to the right-hand side. Campbell with Aton running an angle, a ball back on the inside for Galea. Pops the ball out the back, knocked backwards off the hands there of Ryan Hoffman. That's play on, says the referee. And a simple turnover by Penrith in good position. King now taking it away from dummy half, but he's met by a strong tackle. Stapleton was there, so was Cross, and they knocked him backwards a couple of metres. Now Webster. Bell is up in his face with the help of Lewis. He'll play it at the 20. Friend going to Kidwell. He was very good last week for the Melbourne Storm, and a beaten side at Brookvale Oval by Manly is now Ben Cross. Works it up towards the 40. That was the 5th tackle. Friend comes to Cronk, and now Scott Hill playing deep and getting a good kick away. Wesser will go to the air to take it. Campbell back there, gets the legs going as he comes back towards the line and trying to put a left foot step on, but he fell into the clutches of Jeremy Smith.
He's had some nice touches with the football, Jeremy Smith, but he's also come up with some nice efforts in defence. He looks a likely prospect. Hasn't played a lot of first-grade football, but every time he has pulled on a Storm jersey, he's looked very good. And Cameron Smith warming up on the sideline. Expect him to be back in the action in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Here's Waterhouse now. Another strong run until he was rounded up by Scott Hill. And also Garrett Crossman He's back out there now as Craig Bellamy goes to his bench once again. Now Campbell to Lewis. Ayton running a line back on the inside. It drew some defenders. Rooney had a little bit of space to move in and did pretty well in the end to stay in the field of play under pressure there from Cronk and also Geyer. Here's Lewis on the last. A kick over the top. They've gone to the chip a number of times today. This one was too deep and Hill took it pretty comfortably, and then Inglis was grabbed by a bootlace by Galea. They need to be so careful when kicking towards the flying fullback. Here's Matt King making them play, or pay rather, on the very next play.
Not only a good kick chase, but you've got to make sure that you hold him down. He fights like anything to get up and play the ball quick. He has got one of the fastest play the balls in the game, Greg Inglis. And it just allows the wingers or the centres, if they're in the dummy half, to get out some extra yards. Got to make sure if it's a dominant tackle, you get down there and slow it up.
Dominant tackle, 5.
And they'll kick it here from inside their own half. Once again, Cross playing it, getting back to his feet. A little bit hot under the collar as well. Now Wesser floating across towards Campbell once again. This time he takes it himself. Met there by Nathan Friend, who pegs him down 25 short of the halfway line. No change to the halftime scoreline in the opening 10 minutes of this second half. Rooney playing it for Priddis as they work it up towards the halfway line through Gordon, who gets a little bit of grapple action from Scott Hill over the top there. And there might have been a warning on the run from the referee about getting up around the head or neck region. There's another contact by the 5'8" around that area, this time on Luke Priddis, who has a couple of words to say as well. Joel Clinton. It's a ball away to Pritchard, who had it poised for an offload, and they were there as well. Ayton was looming, so was Campbell. Now Lewis rolling one down towards the in-goal area for Inglis once again, and then Lewis chasing through on his own kick. Stops the Melbourne Storm fullback at the 10-metre line. Geyer going to Steve Turner, who got one around the shoulder, said the referee. The Storm crowd certainly thought there might have been a penalty coming their team's way.
Let him go now.
Geyer playing it. Hardly a mistake from either team in the opening 10 minutes of this second half. Penrith's completion rate 16 of 19 at halftime. The Storm put down a few more than that, and most of them in their own half, which had them under pressure. They did very well defensively. King playing it. Comes back to Cooper Cronk, kicking from inside his own 40. Might have been thinking 40-20, but didn't have the angle on the kick, and this time Wesser bringing it back just outside the 30. Talk about an arm wrestle.
I think the reason for that is that Penrith, at the half-time break, as Kafusi warms up on the bike, is that Penrith, that worked so successful for them in the first half, just having their completion rate up there, grinding away, getting down the other end of the field, and maybe being able to come up with a trick shot. Whereas Melbourne Storm, they would have spoken about completions at half-time and earning the right to shift the football.
Here's a chance to break the your set, our set sequence we've had in the last 5 or 6 minutes here. Penrith get a penalty. We saw them cough up possession off an earlier set inside the Melbourne 20 when Jeremy Smith put down a kick. Now they'll come on the attack again. The Melbourne Storm there, up inside the 10 according to the referee. We'll have them under pressure here. Priddis tapping it, 25 out from the Storm line. Luke Swain has had to wait a long time to get his first touch, and he's out there now after 50 minutes of play. Here's Priddis going to Clinton. Nathan Friend ducking down low to stop him. A good tackle as well. And then the ball came out the back and it was stripped, said the referee. And that will give Penrith a chance to tie the game up with a penalty coming to them right in front of the Melbourne post.
In a tight contest like this, you take all the points you can when they're on offer. They're going to elect to keep the pressure on.
Big play here. What a call that is to go for 6 and not 2. We'll see if they second-guess themselves at full-time about this decision. Here's Campbell going wide to Pritchard. A chance for Penrith. A ball out the back. Campbell showing it one way, stepping, jinking. He's the proverbial jack in the box. He changed direction 14 times and picked up half a metre as a result. Here's Wesser now, trying to get in behind Nathan Friend. They'd gone at the smallest player in the Melbourne lineup with Braun and then speed. He was up to the occasion on both situations. Here's Pritchard now. A couple of metres out. How strong is he? He's been hard to get to ground on every carry this afternoon. Now another penalty here to Penrith. And the referee has a problem with something Ian Donnelly has done, and so does Frank Pritchard. There you see a grapple tackle of facial, a twisting of the neck.
Yeah, the tackle over there was complete, but you've gone around the head area, okay.
I think you'll find himself in some trouble, Donnelly, with that play.
Got no doubt Pritchard takes the tap and gets across the line. He'll be held up there on play number 1. I'll take it back to the 10-metre line. With 5 more tackles to come. The match review committee will look at that incident with Ian Donnelly on Frank Pritchard. I've got no doubt they'll charge him for contrary conduct and a grapple tackle. Here is Lewis playing in front of the post, 10 metres out from the line. Pritchard going back to Campbell, who had Aton with him. Lewis was also there. He bypasses Pritchard to give it to Waterhouse. He comes up with an offload to Lewis. Away to Youngquest. Out the back to Rooney. Back to Lewis once again for his 3rd touch in the one play. And they all pointed towards the line and said, take it that way. Take a settler. Let's just think about things for a moment. Aton going to Campbell. Now Wesser. He had Pulatura on his outside trying to bust something open. Got an offload away. A good one as well. But Pulatura was grabbed there by Matt King. 5 metres out. Trying to get back to his feet. Now Campbell. They've got a chance on the left-hand side if they can get it there. Aton heading there, going over the top of Youngquest. It comes back to Rooney. Still going. He gets to the line and they stop him. Nathan Fred, a desperate tackle a metre away from the try line, forces Rooney across the touchline.
That's tremendous defence. Some good football by Penrith. They kept the ball alive. They challenged the Melbourne Storm right across the paddock. They just worked hard from the inside out. Melbourne, they covered one another, and that's what you have to do when you've got, or you're defending your goal line.
Very big set of 6 for the Penrith Panthers here after all that possession inside the Melbourne 20. They will be desperate to hang on here, Brandy, because the game could change in the next couple of minutes if they don't aim up in defence after all that attack.
Yeah, again, like in the first half where they pressured Melbourne's line. Melbourne are getting out of trouble. They defended well. I thought there was some confusion about the Panthers' attack then. They had a couple of quick taps. Probably should have gone for the goal in the first place. A couple of quick taps. Threw the ball around, but really weren't doing anything with it.
Here's a kick by Cooper Cronk. We've got a penalty coming up here, perhaps. Shane Hayne took a look at it. There was a late contact with Aton, and then the ball here from Wesser, knocked down by Matt King. And there will be a scrum feed coming up to the Penrith Panthers. We've seen, of course, plenty of penalties in recent times where men coming through with a charge down attempt haven't got there in time, and they've knocked the kicker to the ground on that occasion there. Aton almost helping Cooper Cronk to the ground.
Yeah, that was pretty hard. That was hard to pull out of.
Shane Hayne was looking over his shoulder, had a long look at the play, and given what we've seen recently, I was half expecting to hear the whistle and a penalty coming to the Melbourne Storm where Wesser fielded the kick, but he got the call 100% right, the referee. And now another penalty coming up. The Panthers will come on the attack once again. This time it's Jake Webster with a second effort.
Just wait.
Pritchard was trying to get back to his feet, and he was desperate to slow the ball down. He's been involved in a couple of incidents in the last few moments, Frank Pritchard.
Well, their discipline was good in the first 40 minutes, Melbourne. And Pritchard made contact with the referee just before half-time and was asking about the cling on. And all of a sudden, Shane Hayne has penalised them a couple of times.
Here is Pritchard going to Trent Waterhouse.
Scott Hill.
He's looked dangerous this afternoon. He's taken a power of stopping on a couple of occasions. Now Pritchard to Campbell. Wesser looking to open up something on the inside, but Campbell drew no body out of the line. They're inside the 10. Here's Pritchard going to Pritchard, looking to get across the line. In fact, it was Pulatua who carried it to the Melbourne Storm defenders and put it down pretty simply in the end. Another easy let off. And the Melbourne Storm hang on to this 2-point lead. We've had almost 20 minutes of play in this second half, still no change.
Well, you drew comparisons in the first half with last night's game, Canberra and the Cowboys, and this is similar once again.
It's Melbourne today, Loz. Townsville last night, via Sydney, via Brisbane. We travelled some Ks this weekend. It's hard to know what ground you're at. If it's Sunday, it must be Olympic Park. Here's King. They play it. Hoffman down the left-hand side. Slow play the ball as it comes back to Friend. Now Dallas Johnson, who's had a fairly big break after opening up the game with the run on side, of course, backing up for his second game in a matter of days, 5 days after playing in Origin 1 on Wednesday night at Telstra Stadium. Here's Friend going back to Smith, kicking from inside the 40. Another kick down the middle of the park, and we'll do it all over again. Wesser giving it to Campbell. Doesn't he come back at speed with a hop and a step? It's almost a triple jump he does as he comes back to the defenders. And that kick chase line for Melbourne.
Well, it's interesting to note, Melbourne have left Nathan Friend on the football field. Cooper Cronk is still out there. Cameron Smith's out there. Interested to know what the makeup of this team is. As Joel Clinton gets a nice offload away to Luke Lewis.
Loses his footing here on the slightly dewy surface now at Olympic Park. The lights are on, and we need them because it's very gloomy suddenly here in Melbourne. Oh, cramp now for Luke Lewis. He's not travelling too well. He's stiff-legged getting back into position. We've got the best part of 20 minutes still to play here.
That's not a good sign. They don't go away that easy. As Preston Campbell puts the ball into the air, Guy's underneath it and comes down with it.
He put one down in the in goal last week at Brookvale. It led to a try, but he's been extremely safe today. It was unbelievable to see him put the ball down that he did last week on Saturday night against the Manly Sea Eagles. Here's Webster playing it for Turner now. Busting through the tackle almost of Pritchard there. And now Friend with a bit of space for Scott Hill to work in. He came to Pulatua, who was desperate to grab him and only just did. Now Friend. Pulatua working from marker and making a tackle there with the help of Joel Clinton from Turner. It goes to Cronk, who will kick. Here's Campbell again. Watching him come back. There's a little skip. It's almost like he's going to line up for a big Benji Marshall step, and then he went straight on that time.
Well, no matter what happens when he gets the football, the chase has to be great. And nearly got found out there. Cameron Smith looks as though he may be playing in a 5/8 role. Scott Hill packing down at lock. His friend is definitely hooker as Aton gets out of the dummy half roll. Here they come once again, Penrith.
Line breaks are almost non-existent in this second half, and you get the impression that maybe next scorer wins here. If they can get across the line, the Panthers might go on with it. There's a problem for a Melbourne Storm player. Back behind the play, Wesser almost was away. It was play on the call. The locals think he passed off the ground. It comes back to Pulatua, who's in behind him. Got a great ball away to Michael Gordon for the corner. He scores for the Panthers. Shane Hayne will point to the spots. Penrith back in front once again. But won't Melbourne talk about the call to let Reece Wesser pass it off the ground? And it looked as though he was tackled. It started with this bust by Aton.
Well, he's a good player, this young kid, Aton. Out of dummy half. But Reece Wesser, was he tackled? That's the question they're asking. The Storm fans don't like it, but they just played to the whistle.
Campbell from wide out.
Don't you love the way he takes his time with the kicks, Preston, doesn't he?
Just goes back and says, that'll do. I've got it lined up. This one fading off the upright and goes over.
Good stuff, Preston.
I know we're talking about whether Reece Wesser passed off the ground or not. It probably was a 50-50. It could have gone either way. What a terrific ball it was by the captain, but Tony Pulatua, who just come up with a barnstormer then, a one-handed flick out to Mickey Gordon to score the try. And Paul Aton, you're right, Laurie, he's a terrific young player. This is only his 5th game in first grade, but outstanding in the trial matches earlier this year. Played some games in the Premier League and just playing too good for John Lang to leave him there.
Here is Joel Clinton working it outside the 30-metre line for the Panthers. Well, we were guessing about perhaps next scorer winning this game. The Panthers have got across the line, and we'll see if they can hang on to this 4-point lead. 16-12 with quarter of an hour remaining here at Olympic Park. Prittis from inside the 40. The kick, though, goes down the middle of the park. It'll be a long way too big, and they'll bring it back to the 20.
It's amazing how far the game has changed. Both teams out there selected 17 players, and the role of the hooker. The role of the hooker has changed so much that now you just interchange them with your halfback and your 5'8". All three can play similar roles. Luke Prittis has now moved into a halfback position for the Panthers. Cameron Smith, State of Origin player, is playing 5'8". Of course, Luke Prittis has played for Australia, played for New South Wales, was on standby during this week. Interesting call by the coaches to take two of their key players out of key positions to move them somewhere else.
Here is Ryan Hoffman. Luke Lewis off the field at the moment. He's in all sorts of trouble with that cramp of the calf muscle. Looks to be both calf muscles as well as Webster. Goes to Youngquist. We saw him beat him in the first half for a try. The second try of the game for the Melbourne Storm. They've only scored the two of them so far. They've been battling for field position again in this second half as Hoffman takes it forward. Good hands by Cameron Smith. He picked it up and keeps it alive. As it comes back now, they'll play it just outside the 20 through Turner. Friend on the last. Will put it up through Cooper Cronk. Back towards Matt King, who punched it forward straight to Reece Wesser. He was looking for a teammate. It skewed off the punch and went straight to the Panthers fullback.
He was flying high in the pack at the wrong ground.
He was. He should have been across the train line at the MCG, perhaps. Here's Clinton. I'm sure they do plenty of training, probably with Collingwood most of the time, of course. They're based here at what is the Lexus Centre, part of the Olympic Park precinct. They'll have a good facility to work out of in a couple of years' time when their new stadium is built. Here's Prittis now, kicking high. Not that deep to the 20 it went. Inglis bringing it back towards Pritchard. Was out there defending on the left edge with Prittis and also Luke Rooney. Matty Guy fending off one, going across the face of them, changing the point of the attack, doing well, giving it to King, who was well tackled by Michael Gordon, the man who scored the try, who put the Panthers in front. Guy now coming to Johnson. He's covering some metres, Matty Guy suddenly, and Penrith are up inside the 10. They've hardly had a tackle inside the Penrith 20-metre line in this second half.
Well, that's where they still have to show composure. 12 minutes is a long time in the game. They've been under pressure. They may feel as though they have to force the issue. Your mind starts to play funny tricks with you. But you need to be able to stay composed, build pressure if you have to. Oh, they went down the short side. Preston Campbell. In that situation, when you get Preston Campbell isolated like that, and he's got to make a decision, you show and go. Because you know that he's going to come up and have a go at the football.
Here's Inglis coming across the face of the Penrith defence from the scrum win. He's got so much speed! Oh boy, they'll rue the fact that they stood off and let him wind up. And once he gets a chance, there's just no stopping him. 10 tries in 10 games. What a player this 19-year-old is.
Well, it's quite remarkable. He floats across the field, and there he goes. He carries the ball in his left hand, and he actually fends away Luke Prittis going across his body, and then spins away, and then goes one-on-one with Youngquist, and he gets on the outside, and Youngquist just can't go with him. That's a couple of missed tackles now for Youngquist.
Cameron Smith with a kick from the sideline to put Melbourne back in front. The strike is good. It just misses to the right-hand side. 16 all.
Well, it's a big decision next week for Craig Bellamy. Billy Slater coming back into the equation. I might get Greg Alexander's thoughts on that. Whether Billy Slater, what position will he come back into this Melbourne side?
Well, it's a tough one, isn't it? Like, Steve Turner's playing well on the wing. They've got Jake Webster can move out to the wing too. They've got Matt King. I think I'd put Billy Slater back to fullback, and I'd put Greg Inglis into the centres. I know Greg Inglis is a superstar now, but I think to fit Billy Slater into the side, I wouldn't put him on the wing, and I think Greg Inglis can get more involved if he plays centre than out in the wing. He scored 3 tries against Penrith in 7 minutes playing in the centres. I still think he can get plenty of ball from that position.
Cameron Smith kicking from inside his 40, down to Wesser, who again took it on the full. He's had plenty of work to do this afternoon, and there's Nathan Friend once more, leading the chase down the middle of the park to pick off Luke Rooney. Wesser from dummy half, coming to Friend, getting away from Kidwell. There's only Inglis in front of him. Speed versus brilliance. And Inglis makes a catch and a stop at the 30-metre line. Here's Priddis now, coming back to Campbell. He goes back to the right-hand side where Swain is rounded up, just outside the Melbourne 20. 3 tackles gone in this set. Campbell gets to dummy half. Clinton running to Friend. He'll play it in front of the post. They'll set it for one play here, perhaps on the last tackle, which is where they'll be when Aiton plays it here 10 metres out from the Melbourne line. Priddis waiting for it. Campbell just behind him. Wesser thinking field goal. Sprays it to the left-hand side. Maybe they'd have been better off with Preston Campbell taking it, remembering he beat the Dragons in Golden Point time at Wollongong earlier this year with everybody charging up in his face.
Interesting decision, but I'm sure it's something they would have discussed because of the way that they set it up. They went to the far right-hand side of the post. If you do that and come back to your left, you need a left-foot kicker. Reece Wesser, left-foot kicker.
I'm surprised they went with Reece Wesser. Preston Campbell, doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right, and Warren brought it up. The field goal he kicked against St George, he had 5 blokes hanging off him, and he still somehow found a way to get it over the crossbar. Preston Campbell should be the bloke kicking field goals.
We'll see what happens next opportunity they get. Here's Rooney from the 20. Penrith winning the battle of field position again in this second half. This has been a very impressive effort for a team without he's no longer captain, but their inspirational leader, you could say, in Craig Gower. Youngquist playing it for Aiton. Waterhouse cutting back in amongst the meat of the Melbourne Storm defensive line. Here's Aiton going to Matthew Cross. They'll play it just short of the halfway line. 5 minutes, 30 seconds remaining in this game. 16 all between the Storm and the Panthers. A couple of great games we've brought to you live this weekend in round 12. Campbell from 43 metres, trying to better what Brett Finch did, trying to better what Todd Carney did last night for the Raiders. Here's Inglis. Off the return, threatening to go a long way again.
Sometimes I think you're better off when you're that far back to kick for field position and try and have a good chase and make the opposition get a bit nervous carrying the football away from their line. Work hard in your defence, try and force an error.
Let him go now.
Jeremy Smith is back out there for Melbourne, playing it to Friend. Now Cronk going to Guy, but Nick Youngquist coming in and stopping him in a hurry. Good work by the left centre on that occasion. They've used up 4 tackles in this set. They won't get within range on this play. Ben Cross dumping it out the back might give them a chance, though. Cameron Smith standing in the tackle, trying to offload. If they go with a field goal attempt, it will be from a long way out. Here is Cooper Cronk. He'll try one. It's not a great kick. It floats to the right-hand side, and Penrith will bring it back out to their own 20.
So I can't understand that with 4.5 minutes to go. Unless you're a specialist at doing it, I would prefer my team to kick to a corner and get down there and chase as hard as possible. Because if you can do that, they start to run from dummy half. You get 3 tackles out of them very quickly, and all of a sudden, there could be some panic start to set in, and they're kicking from deep inside their own half. then you put pressure on, then you get the ball, say on a 30 or a 40, you're in good position straight away to attack.
Matthew
Work it for a
Cross
field goal.
thought about passing there under pressure and made a good call to hang on to it. Now Waterhouse again. Plenty of carries for him this afternoon. That's his 21st of the afternoon. They've made a mistake.
You've lost the ball, and they've lost it too, so the two knock-ons.
There will be a knock-on against the Penrith Panthers, and the Melbourne Storm will have the scrum feed. 40 out from Penrith's line. Here's the play once again. Waterhouse losing it behind his back.
Just still.
Wouldn't mind seeing that one again at some stage. A very close call. Here's Hoffman playing it back for King. Getting out of dummy half. 2 tackles gone. They're 30 metres out. They can work it down to a good position. Here is Kafusi running at the diminutive Aton. He'll play it in front of the post. Friend goes to Cronk. Back to Steve Turner. Lurking midfield, looking for a hole. Maybe on this play. They go to Friend. Kafusi works it away from the post. Gets it back to Nathan Friend. And then throws a pass which Campbell almost intercepted.
Well, once again, Campbell coming up. He found the ball. They kept it alive. Their first plan was to go for the field goal, but then they got an offload. And his heart would have been in his mouth when he threw that pass, Nathan Friend.
Now Cronk with the scrum feed. They're 10 metres out to start this set of 6. Inglis can't repeat his heroics of last time. Gaia, they might try and emulate him, and gets run over the touchline.
Well, we speak about composure. There should have been a call at the scrum. There should have been a call. Let's work for the 1-pointer. Craig Bellamy would be pulling his hair out. They've had ample opportunities in the last 3 minutes to at least set themselves up to get a result.
2 outstanding chances to win this game with a field goal. And both of them wasted by the Melbourne Storm. Are you ready for overtime again, Loz?
I can go with it, son. Bring it on.
Boy, I'd like to see your pay packet after this weekend. Here's Bell playing it for Penrith at the 30-metre line. They'll try and work it up into good field position, get a kick away to make the Melbourne Storm go the length of the field with perhaps the last set of 6 in the first 80 minutes of play. Here's Prittis going to Campbell on the last, gets a kick away. Turner now is back there at fullback. They've all had a turn. Inglis, Gaia and Turner, who almost split them. Rooney made a desperate tackle. Here's Cronk going to Matt Gaia, who comes back to the right-hand side again. This time, though, he's wrapped up 10 metres in from the touchline. Webster out of dummy half. The clock goes inside the 40-second mark.
You're just thinking yards now. Yards, if it comes down to the last play, to have a long-range shot, so be it. But it'll be the last set you'll get in this period of time.
Here's Kafusi playing it. 40 metres out. Cronk's taken one. He'll go again. This one's a better strike. It looks pretty good. Fading perhaps on the breeze. Taken by Wesser. He left the ground in the field of play when he caught it and brings it back out to the 20. And guess what? We're going to the golden point for the second time this weekend. Rooney will play it here as the siren sounds, and that does it. At the end of regulation time, it's Melbourne and the Panthers locked up at 16 all. The kickoff from Cameron Smith goes past Luke Prittis, and luckily Craig Stapleton was there to keep the ball from going across the dead ball line. That would have been a disaster for the Panthers. Here's Pulatua now. Rooney from dummy half, giving it to Matthew Cross as the Storm defenders line up, and then Ben Cross comes in and puts a shot on his brother Matthew. Stapleton runs at Jeremy Smith. He brings it back outside the 20-metre line. Here's Aton going to Pritis rather, who takes it across the 30-metre line. Melbourne, of course, have been in just the one Golden Point game. They lost here at Olympic Park back in 2003 to the Broncos when Scott Minto scored a try. Pritis's kick will give possession to Melbourne just outside their own 20-metre line. Here's Turner bringing it back midfield. We'll see if they go with another long-range one, if they have the chance from 40 out, or they just roll it towards the in goal. Now Inglis from dummy half. Thought he had the markers caught out of position, and he did.
Smart play. Smart play by the young rookie. He knew he had the markers gone, and he ran straight into them. And the referee was waiting for the advantage to happen, but there was none. Now what do they do? Do they set up for the 1 point?
They had two great chances in regulation. They squandered both. Cross has them back at the 20. Here's Hoffman. Will it be Cronk? Will it be Cameron Smith? Cronk is pointing behind the play, saying, I want it there on the next one. Smith obliges him and will play it 5 metres out. Cronk waits for it. Back at the 20-metre line. Cameron Smith is also there. Nathan Friend goes from dummy half and almost caught them out. Look at another chance here. Kidwell waiting at dummy half. He knows where it has to go. It comes back to Cronk. They're racing up. It goes to Smith. Now to Gaia. Splitting the gap. Wesser makes a tackle. Last play here for Melbourne. They'll get one more chance. Back to Cronk. He gets a kick away. Charged down by Campbell. 6 more tackles for Melbourne.
Got to go left. Go left, they score. They've got the numbers.
Kidwell takes it from dummy half and perhaps wastes an immediate chance they had. They go that way again. Now Friend coming to Hoffman. He'll play it 10 metres out. Penrith have been so game throughout the contest. Here's Smith weaving between them and then flushes it but misses from almost point-blank range.
He's been leaving it up to Cooper Cronk, but on this occasion he wanted to have a go at it. And again, the setup. Brandy disagrees with me, but for a left-foot kicker, that's not the position you want the ball to be coming, because you just can't go with the flow and snap it. You've got people coming from inside, you've got people coming from outside.
Here's Cross playing it as Pritis goes to Pula-2, and now he almost lost it. Held it in that big right hand of his. Then it came back to Rooney. Now Aiton, who straightens. Good run. It's exactly what they needed to get a little bit of momentum. He was looking for a fast play, the ball. Cross was able to hold him down, and now Waterhouse coming at them again. Or Kafusi was up around the shoulders, or maybe higher, and he staggered Waterhouse. Here is Campbell, kicking for the in-goal area. He finds Inglis. Of all the players to kick it to, he may not have been the first choice, but they did a good job on him. Galea was there, and so was Campbell.
I'll tell you what, Kafusi was lucky to not have given away a penalty. And well done to Trent Waterhouse for getting to his feet and playing the football. I've got no doubt if he stays on the ground, it's a penalty. And a shot at goal for Penrith to win the game.
Here's Hoffman playing it back to Friend. Now Gaia picked up in the tackle of Aiton. Stapleton driving him backwards as well. 25 seconds remaining. 2 tackles left in this set of 6. Turner getting away from them. Inglis is out there just waiting. Friend to Smith, who kicks. It'll come down to Wesser, who plays it off the chest. He'll bring it back out towards the 30. This will be the last play of this first period. What a pass from Reece Wesser. He put Youngquist under pressure there. And the siren sounds at the end of 5 minutes. They'll get a quick breather, turn it around, and go again.
Frank Pritchard also, he won't be back on the field. Looks like he's broken his right hand.
Oh, that is a shame for the Panthers. 2 real strike weapons unable to be called on here in the final 5 minutes of this game. We go past the 85-minute mark. There is Lewis shaking his head. He can't believe his misfortune here today. And now Scott Hill. He caught Stapleton awkwardly in the tackle. Now Hoffman coming across. Stapleton's there across the top to make the next tackle as well. 30 metres out, they'll play it. Here's Friend from dummy half, going to Jeremy Smith. running at Bell and also Aiton. 4 tackles gone. Here's Cronk going to his right-hand side with the second man play. We haven't seen too much of that this afternoon, and now Turner will play it at the halfway line. You would think they'll just kick for position here. In fact, they'll go back to Cameron Smith, who does exactly that from inside his own half. He rolls it down to Preston Campbell. He looks up and sees Smith and also Hoffman there, and he plays it. 25 short of the halfway line. Gordon, a quick-fire run from dummy half, and well picked off by Jeremy Smith. Every little play means so much at the moment, and that was a good effort from Marker.
Well, it's all about yardage when you got the football. You've just got to get yourself into a position to try and at least give yourself a chance of going to 1 point or build for something. Now, the defences of both teams are very tight. Good run from Aiton there.
Surrender!
Now the pressure will be applied to the kickers.
Here's Campbell. Thinks about a kick, dummies, and then gets caught with the ball by Scott Hill.
Great chase. That's what's needed. You've got to show that desperation. And a good tackle by Cross. Was it Cross on King?
Here's Cronk. He goes to Ben Cross. 2 tackles gone. He plays it at the halfway line. Here's Scott Hill. Has been quiet for most of the game. It might be his moment. Now Smith going back to Ben Cross again, putting his hand up for another carry. Got a ball out the back to Cameron Smith. He comes to Pulatua, beats his tackle, then comes to Waterhouse, got it back to Jeremy Smith. Wesser came up to make a tackle. Play number 5 in the set. They'll go back to Cronk. The chasers came, and then Steve Turner with a field goal attempt, and he misses. Boy, they've had some chances.
Well, it was 4th play. I think if I was the Melbourne Storm, I'd want Cameron Smith to kick it. He slices that one, Steve Turner. I think they've got to set up for Cameron Smith if they can.
There's Turner at the back, playing a fullback at the moment. The one-time Penrith fullback, of course, who was blocked in his path to first grade by Reece Wesser. Here's Prittis going to Pulatua, who lost the ball, and Melbourne get another chance. Here's Kidwell, and then he lost it. It'll be a knock-on against the Storm.
When you strip it, it's there.
In fact, it won't be. It's a knock-on from a strip against the Panthers, would you believe?
Well, it was a one-on-one strip, and I'm sure Preston Campbell pulled the ball down. And it did go forward because he was facing the opposition try line. There you see him pulling the ball out, and that's a correct call by the referee.
The Melbourne Storm off the scrum win, come again through Scott Hill. Inside the final 90 seconds, and this really is the final 90 seconds. Here's Hoffman now. It might come down to this one last chance. They've had some and have been unable to convert. Cross plays it. Smith gives it to Dallas Johnson. He takes it quickly, looking for a fast play the ball to give Cronk or Turner a chance again. Here it comes for Cronk. This strike is pretty good. It's better than that. It's perfect. And in the last minute of Golden Point time, Cooper Cronk wins the game for the Melbourne Storm. What a finish. What a weekend. Ah, you've got to love your league.